Hello and welcome to episode 44 of the Victorian Studio podcast. My name is Maureen and I'm coming to you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada on Monday, August the 1st, 2016. Welcome to all new and returning viewers. I hope you enjoy your visit with me today in my studio. Well, over the last couple of weeks, I've got a fair amount of knitting completed, so a little bit of spinning, and some yarn dyeing to share with you today, as well as a few new acquisitions. Also, over the last couple of weeks, we've been having some stormy weather. In fact, today we've been having thunderstorms most of the day, so hopefully this won't get interrupted by any thunder or lightning. But speaking of storms, a couple of weeks ago, just a few days after the last podcast, in fact, we had quite the thunderstorm that ended up spawning 3 tornadoes. Luckily, none really close to home here, but in this general area, there was some damage done. Roof taken off of one building, and I know in a smaller town outside of town, there were a few homes damaged by a tornado. So I thought I would share with you some video and photos I happened to take that night. I love watching storms, and out our back bedroom window, I have a good view of our large backyard, and I was just taking some photos and video of how the clouds were changing that night from about close just to before 8 o'clock at night to about 10 o'clock. We had such drastic changes in weather. I thought you'd find it interesting, so I'll tack that on at the very end. Now, before I start today's episode, I did want to have a special shout out and sincere thank you to 2 very sweet ladies. Marlisha, the co-host of the Pen, Hook and Needles podcast, and her daughter Talia are such sweet friends, and we've been exchanging parcels back and forth. And in my most recent parcel to them, I also put in a couple of art supplies for their other daughter, Davina, who is also a sometimes co-host and guest star on their podcast. And she sent me the sweetest box, a very special surprise in the mail the other day. I was so very thrilled to see this box in my mailbox that came from Drama Queen 7, and I knew exactly who that was. And it's something very special because it's something that I've seen both Marlisha and Talia wear jewelry that Davina has made for them. And how lucky am I, Davina made me a necklace as well. So I feel very, very special. Davina, thank you so much. So I wanted to share with you today this beautiful necklace that Davina sent me. And it's perfect. Great colors, as you can see, Davina. Thank you. So I wanted to show this to you up close. Isn't that very nice? I just love it, Davina. Thank you so much. You do such wonderful work, and I'm going to treasure this. It's so very nice. And she sent me a wonderful letter as well. And separately, just the same day they arrived, our postal service has been quite crazy because of the postal interruptions with Canada Post and their union fighting back and forth. So I ended up getting both of these things in the same day. Marlisha also sent me a very sweet thank you card and some tea, and I just was thrilled to get all of these things from such wonderful people. So thank you so much, both Marlisha and Davina, for your surprises. It really was very, very sweet. And Davina, I love my necklace. Thank you very much. You do a wonderful job. So I'm very proud to wear that today. So let's see. Over the last couple of weeks, I was hoping to get the last of my spinning done for the Tour de Fleece, but to be honest, there was only a very little bit that I ended up doing for the last couple of days of the Tour de Fleece. But I wanted to mention that because I also closed the thread in the Victorian Studio podcast group for our very own Tour de Fleece competition. So a little bit later in the episode, I'll be announcing the winners of the free Ravelry pattern downloads to 3 lucky winners. So I'll start off with some knitting that I was able to work on since the last episode. The first project I wanted to share with you were my Harry Potter socks. These were the Gryffindor Pride socks that I've been working on for quite a while, and I got them finished, so I'm very pleased with that. The last time I showed these, I believe I had one sock finished, and now I have the second one done. So they are finally off the needles, and here they are. So I'm really thrilled the way these turned out. They are definitely nice, thick house socks. They're not meant to be worn with shoes because they're made with Cascade 220. I'll just show you the yarn that I did use in the colors Ruby and Marigold. So that's the Cascade Sport. And I don't have much left of either of the two colors. I had to split in two because I was doing them 2 at a time. So that's all I have left. So those will be make up some nice mini skeins. Maybe something small, Harry Potter related, Gryffindor related. These are my Gryffindor Pride socks by Anne Kingston. And as you can see, mine are quite different than hers. I basically used her pattern as kind of a jumping off point to making some shorter socks rather than the knee socks that she had designed. And since they were shorter, I also didn't do the Go Gryffindor lettering on the side of them. So, but I'm really thrilled with the way they turned out because they're a good size for me. They're really super comfy, and I'm really pleased with the color work. And I'll insert a picture at the end of the episode of them on my feet so you can see them a little bit better. So there's the lions that run up the front of the sock and then the one in the back. I really love that design. So I'm really pleased with the way they turned out, and I'm happy to get them finally off the needles. They were quite a long project, but lots of fun to do. I love doing color work and seeing the design progress as you go. So yeah, that's the only thing that I got completed in the last couple of weeks, but I did get some work done on my other 2 sock projects. And the first one is the Wallaby Way socks by Sarah Lozzie at the Pearls of Color podcast. Sarah was kind enough to ask me to test knit these socks, and she was also very generous in donating a copy of her pattern, the Wallaby Way, to the members of the Victorian Studio podcast group. So I had opened a thread after the last episode, I believe, and I locked it last night at midnight, and I've made a draw for the winner of the pattern, and I'll announce that just after I show these. So it was great test knitting these for Sarah, and I showed last time that I had finished the first sock. Unfortunately, the yarn that I chose to do them with doesn't really show the pattern of the turtle very well. That's the motif that I decided to do because of my sea turtle bag that I made from my drawings of sea turtles. And there's 2 other patterns that you can choose from in her pattern, fish and a jellyfish, I believe. So you can make these socks with any pattern that you want out of those. And she has both written and charted, toe up and cuff down. So it really is an all-inclusive pattern. So that one I had finished a while ago so that I could give her my feedback on the test of the sock. And then I'm just doing the second one now. So the last time I showed it, I believe I was just on the leg of the sock. So I was able to get the heel flap and gusset done, and now I'm working on the foot. So I'm hoping I can get that second one and the pair completed in the next little while. So hopefully in the next episode I'll have that as a complete finished object as well. So, as I said, Sarah was very kind to offer a free pattern to one of our viewers and Victorian Studio podcast group members. So what I did was I closed that thread last night, and there was posts from numbers 2 to 17 that I put into random.org, and it came up with lucky number 13, and that was Safe 54 Cheryl. So Cheryl, when you see this, just PM me and I'll arrange for Sarah to gift that pattern to you. So thank you everyone who entered for that drawing. So, and thank you Sarah very much for offering that pattern for a giveaway. I know that Cheryl is going to have a great time knitting that up as well. So on to the next projects that I've been doing for the Canada Cal. This is something that started on July the 1st and was started by the Two Tangled Skeins podcast ladies, and I'm co-hosting in my own group. So there's already 44 finished objects in this knit along. So it's wonderful to see everybody's beautiful patterns and projects. So thank you everyone for entering. This started July 1st. It goes until September 30th. And to enter, you must be a member of the Victorian Studio podcast group and do a project that is either designed by a Canadian, has a Canadian indie yarn in it, or is an element of Canada. So when you post your projects, just please explain what is Canadian about your project. So it's been wonderful seeing everybody's beautiful creations to date. So I've been making my own Canada projects that I'll be entering in the other co-hosts of this Canada Cal. There are quite a few, and I will link to Tangled Skeins in my project notes so that, or in the episode notes, so that you can visit and see all the different podcasters that are participating in this knit along. So the first project that I've been working on are my Canadiana socks, and those are being done using Fishknits Yarn. And this is some yarn that I received last year from Fishknits, and they have two different colorways, I believe. One is called HBC, and the one I'm using today is called Canadiana, and it's 80% superwash wool and 20% nylon. And these are wonderful because she's dyed them up to represent the stripes in the Hudson Bay blankets. Similar to the blanket. I don't have it on my chair today, but similar to the Hudson Bay blankets that I've shown previously. So I believe last time when I was showing this, I didn't put any progress markers. I believe I was down to about the red stripes. So now that I'm finished the leg on this one, I am about to do the heel flap. And I have done the heel flap on the second one. Again, I am doing 2 at a time like I usually do, but on separate needles. So these are a lot of fun. Now that I've gone through all the stripes, the rest of the heel flap and foot are all just the cream color. So yeah, it's coming along really well. So I'm very happy with that. I'm having a lot of fun knitting on those. So this is a nice project that I usually take to work at lunch hours because it's so nice and small, very easily to do during my lunch hours at work, just for a few minutes. But I'll share with you at the end of the podcast. I haven't got as much done on these socks because I've been doing some other things at lunch hours at work. So, but this is the bag that is similar to the prizes that I've created for the Victorian Studio podcast group members who are participating in the Canada Cal. So I won't show them this week. I've shown them before and I'll show them again, all the prizes. Or if you're interested, there'll be a link in the show notes to my group, and you'll be able to see the thread for the Canada Cal and see photos of all the prizes that I'm offering. So yeah, that's the first of the Canada themed projects that I've been working on the last couple of weeks. The second is my Kaachan sweater, And the last episode, I know I didn't show this at all because I didn't get anything done on it, but over the last couple of weeks I did get a little bit more done on this, so I can share that with you today. Now, if you haven't been here before, this is a very Canadian designed sweater, because White Buffalo back in the 70s was a company out of Brandon, Manitoba that had very special yarn that was made traditionally into what's called the Kaachan sweater. And this is one of the vintage pattern books that I purchased a little while ago because I wanted to make my very own Kaachan sweater. But what I'm doing is I'm changing it up a bit. I'm doing what they call the polar bear jacket or sweater. But to me, the brown bear or black bear doesn't look very polar bearish to me, so I'm doing mine with a white bear, and so I'm changing up the colors a little bit. So the last time I showed this, I showed all the different yarns that I had chosen, and I've added to that a little bit. So I'll share these with you now. One of the main colors I'm doing in the sweater is this Cascade Ecological wool, and this is Peruvian wool, and it just says it's 100% undyed Peruvian Highland wool. This is a huge skein of this kind of oatmeal color, so that's one that I'm using. I'm using the same wool in this beautiful gray. Again, a nice big cake of that. So those are two of the main colors. And then some of the whites, I'm using some different colors. I was able to find some Ultra Alpaca Chunky by Baracco. So I'm using that for some of the color work, top and bottom, kind of the design, almost like a, I think it's like a Greek design that's on there. So I'm using some of that because that's the only one I have of that. Got that on sale at the local yarn shop. So because I didn't have a lot of that, I'm also using some other naturally colored yarn, and one of the ones that I am using is some of these skeins that I got from On a Quest for Fibre. And this is beautiful yarn. Now, she doesn't have on here what the percentage is, but I do know that some of her bunny's wool is in here, so this is beautifully soft, and I'm using this for the polar bears on both sides of the front of the sweater. And on the back, the large polar bear on the back, I'm going to be using the White Buffalo yarn that I have. I don't have a lot of it, so I'm saving that for the polar bear motif on the back. So the last time I showed it, I believe I only had a few rows done of the first side. There's a marker showing what I had done the last time. So there's that kind of Greek motif on the bottom of the front. And since then, I've got the whole one side done. So this is all knit flat and then sewn together. So this is the right front. You can see there's the armhole, and then there's some decreases for the front where the collar will go. And then here's the polar bear, and I designed the polar bear a little bit differently. I changed it up from the pattern, so I made it a little bit different to make it look more polar bearish. And there's the opening that will be for the first pocket, so there'll be pocket linings that are sewn in as well. So yeah, I finished the one front, so the next up is the other front, and then the back. The two sleeves are knit flat, and then the pocket linings and collars. So this is very interesting. It's a lot of fun using large needles. I believe they're size 13 needles, so it goes very, very quickly. So let's see, I think that's all I have to share about that project with you. It will be a long time coming, I believe, because you know, I could only work on it at home because it is such a large project, and it's great having this big project bag that I made for it. So it's not something I can take to work on, that's for sure. So yeah, as I progress with that, I have until the end of September. Obviously, it's something I'm not going to even wear until the fall time because it's so very hot and humid here right now. There's no way that I can even try it on without getting pretty hot. So that's definitely a fall project. And now on to spinning. I must admit, since the last episode, I didn't get very much done at all. I was hoping to do some packs of sample fiber that I received from Deb at Fondant Fibre, but I was only able to spin up the first couple before other things took my attention away. So the Tour de Fleece for me ended on a very slow note. I was able to get those first 4 skeins done that I was very pleased with doing, but I'll have to save, I guess, the fiber from Deb for another spinning time. But I was able to get one of them done. Now, if you've been here before, you'll know that I got 2 of these sample packs of fiber from Fondant Fibre, and these are great because they're little samples, all different fiber types. This one, I have 2, and they're 2 different packs, but this one that I started with has white face woodland, grey Gotland, white Southdown, white Dorset horn, grey Suffolk, Mooret Shetland, black Jacob, and white Cheviot. And I believe there's 25 grams to each. I'll show you one here to give you an idea. This is a great way to test out different breeds with just a bit of fiber, and each one is so different. It's really beautiful. This is the Mooret Shetland. So I started with 2, and what I did was I wanted to keep some of the fiber in its natural state unspun, so I just pulled off a little bit before I spun it up. So I started with the white Southdown and the grey Gotland, and I did singles of each of these and then ended up plying them together. So this is what I'm going to do with the rest of them. At least you can see what I'm planning. So there's a little mini skein of both of those plied together. And it's not the softest yarn, but it was really interesting to see how each one spun up. So that was a lot of fun. So as I said, my Tour de Fleece wasn't very productive since the last episode. But I did have a lot of fun participating in the groups that I did belong to. And even more, I loved seeing all the participation in the Victorian Studio podcast group in our own Tour de Fleece threads. So thank you everyone who participated in that. I hope you had lots of fun. It was wonderful seeing the beautiful yarn that was being spun up, the beautiful fibers that they were using. It was really, really wonderful. So I thought now I would announce the winners of the 3 $10 or less Ravelry giftable patterns that will go to 3 lucky winners. So let's see, there was 133 posts in that thread. Now some of them were my posts, so what I did was I did random.org and I selected a number, but if it happened to be one of my posts, then I just redrew for it. But I had to laugh because the first number that random.org chose was post number 5, and wouldn't you know, that's Valeria. So congratulations, Valeria. You'll won one of the patterns. Just PM me on Ravelry and choose a pattern of $10 US or less, and I will gift that to you. The second winner is Cello Dancer, and that's Linda. So congratulations, Linda. Again, also PM me on Rav. And the third and final winner is post number 112, and that was La Mancha Mama Amy. So congratulations, all 3 of you. Thank you for everybody for participating in the Tour de Fleece group over at the Victorian Studio podcast. I hope you had as much fun as I did seeing everybody's progress. Beautiful, beautiful work done by everyone working on from spindles to wheels. All the yarns were just so very beautiful. So had a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll do it again next year. So so all 3 of you winners, please PM me on Rav, and I'll be sure to gift you those patterns as your prizes. So let's see. The next thing I wanted to talk about today was the other thing that kind of took my focus away from spinning and knitting, and that was I wanted to do another project that wasn't socks for the Canada Knit Along. And I had a pattern in my favorites for a while that I thought was very interesting, and that's the maple leaf shawl. And I thought this would be a perfect time to make it, obviously, because of the Canada cow. So I purchased the pattern, and here is just I'll put a picture in here of a better picture, but here is the pattern that I downloaded. And as I said, I'll put a picture in here so you can see that shawl better. And so what I did was, after I purchased the pattern, of course, then I had to decide what yarn to use for creating this. And I looked at some of the previous projects. This has been made quite a bit with some beautiful yarns, but I wanted to do something that really did look like a leaf. So I went to good old Google and Googled images of maple leaves or leaves. And it was funny. The one that really struck my eye was an actual tattoo. And so I'll put a picture of it in here. I really love the gradient from the yellows to the dark reds in this tattoo. So the next thing that I had to decide on was the yarn that I was going to make this maple leaf shawl out of. And since I didn't have any gradient yarn in my stash, I thought I would dye up my own. So I still had some bare yarn, and I took 2 skeins of the Felici bare sock yarn, and that's from Knit Picks. And of those 2 skeins, I separated each one into 8 bundles. They're about 50 grams each. There was one bundle at the end was a little bit more, but I tried to almost evenly separate this whole skein into little bundles of yarn, but still kept them attached. So that way I could dye one and take it out of the pot and then dye the next one, and it would still be all attached. So so as I said, I took both skeins, so I ended up with 16 little bundles of yarn that I could dye in different solutions. So I set up on my stove a roasting pan. I usually use my large pot. It's almost like a spaghetti pot for dyeing my yarns in, but this time I wanted something that was low and easy to get the yarn in and out of. So I had an old roaster that I wasn't going to use for eating anymore, and I set up, first of all, a container that the yarn was soaking in a citric acid solution on the counter, and then on the stove I had this roaster that I was going to put the dye into, and then on the other side of that some towels, so I could move the yarn from being soaked to dyeing to then in the drying area without cutting any of the yarn. So I dyed 2 bundles at a time, and then I'll explain a little bit how I kind of also adjusted the colors with that. But speaking of colors, what I did was I went to my Jacquard and Landscapes dyes and picked out a yellow and a red. That would be my starting point. So I have these squeeze bottles that I got at the dollar store, and I thought I would make up all my solutions, all the different colors in all of these squeeze bottles, and I'll have pictures of this as I explain it. So I started out on either end of the spectrum with a yellow that was a little bit of kangaroo pop, which is a little bit orange, put into that so it wouldn't be so stark a yellow, and then a deep red on the other end. And then using a calculator and figuring out volumes, I gradually increased one color and decreased the next so that I would have this gradient. So using a syringe, and I tell you, using a syringe and gloved hands and red dye made it look like it was surgery time. Put a picture in here. Looked like something very macabre was going on. I would put in, say in the first bottle, so much of the red and a little bit of yellow. And then in the next one, I put a little bit less red and a little bit more yellow and went down the line that way so that, as I said, would gradually gradiate between the yellow and the red. So it was a great way to do this, and the process didn't take very long at all, really. I thought I'd be doing this all day. But using that shallow pan and not a lot of water, it was actually very easy to put the yarn in. After I would put the first dye in, and I started with the lightest color, so I'd start with the yellow, put it in the water on the stove, then add the first 2 bundles of yarn, bring it up to just under a boil, and then let it cool, and then move it over onto the towel to dry. And then it was still attached. Like I say, I would take then the next bottle of dye, put it in the water, and then put the next bundle that was attached to the first one. And then just as I was cooling down the next 2 bundles, I popped in one of the previous bundles that I'd already dyed into that to kind of make an in-between color even of those 2 colors. So I ended up with 16 different gradients between the yellow and the red, and I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. And here's a picture of all of those bundles as they're drying. And then what I did was I skeined them all up into 2 separate skeins, and then after made sure they were all dry, and then I caked them up into one large cake, and it's all ready now for me to start knitting. So that's why I haven't started knitting this shawl yet, because I wanted to share with you the cake. I'm really pleased with the way this gradient turned out. So there's the resultant yarn. So those are 2 skeins of the Knit Picks Felici, and it's 872 yards in all, so it should be plenty for that maple leaf shawl. But I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. So starting with the yellow, that's what I'm going to be starting with, and then ending with the red. And the last 2 bundles of the red, I also sprinkled a little bit of the Black Landscapes, I think it's called Kaachan, dye right into the bath as they were cooking. And so at the very end, there is actually black speckles in the red. So yeah, I'm really pleased with my first attempt at gradient yarns. So hopefully the next episode I'll be able to show you the first of my maple leaf shawl using my own yarn. So the next things that I wanted to share with you this week were some new acquisitions that arrived in the mail. With the on-again, off-again situation at Canada Post, it's made mail delivery quite interesting. When Knit Picks announced back in June that they had once again put Felici sock up for sale on their site, I made sure to go the first day to choose a few colorways that I really wanted to add to my yarn stash. So I went ahead and ordered 5 balls of yarn, which I'll share with you. And I was waiting and waiting, and this was at the end of June. And I would check my mailbox every day, even though the strike wasn't on. Nothing was showing up. So I finally decided, after weeks and weeks of waiting and no sign of my yarn, to check the tracking on Knit Picks. And surprising and quite disconcerting was a notice on the tracking information that it had been delivered and refused by the recipient and returned to Knit Picks. So needless to say, I was quite put off and contacted customer service at Knit Picks. What they had failed to inform me was, because of the pending Canada mail strike, they had decided to send it UPS. and it had been sitting over in the UPS terminal just a few blocks from my home, and because I hadn't gone to pick it up, they had returned it without informing me or Knitpicks at all. So neither Knitpicks or UPS informed me that it was just a few blocks away and I could have had it weeks earlier, and they had sent it back. So needless to say, they shipped it back in the mail to me, regular post, and I received it just a couple of days ago. So finally, after about a 6-week wait, I finally have my Felici yarn. So what I decided to get this time around was, first of all, one more ball of the rainbow, because I had used one for my project for the Pen, Hook and Needles Autism Awareness Knit-along. So I'd used just the one, so I only had one left in my stash. So I thought I would get a second one, so that way now I have enough again if I want to make some rainbow socks. So that was the first one that I got. And then the second colorway that I decided on was this Eclipse. I thought this was very pretty, and I ended up getting again 2 balls of this. So I thought the purples and the blacks especially I really love. I think these will make really awesome looking socks. They look quite different, but I think it was just the way they were skeined up. So that should be nice. It's always so soft. I love the Felici. And then my favorite, which you've seen, I'm sure, on countless other podcasts, because this is probably one of the most purchased one. It was probably the highest or most popular colorway this time, was Beyond the Wall, and obviously a Game of Thrones reference. So yes, the ice blues and then the grays and blacks, those are going to make awesome socks. So those just might be my next socks on the needles when I finish my current projects. So yeah, poor Felici yarn was delivered to me twice, so had quite the roundabout trip to get to me, but I'm so glad I finally got it. So the other thing that arrived in the mail just a few days ago was my latest order from Spoonflower. I've been having so much fun making my own fabric for some project bags. And the latest designs I designed myself. The first one is just some bunnies that I had done a little doodle of a little bunny on just a little piece of paper, and I thought, okay, that looks kind of neat. So I threw it into the Spoonflower website and kind of changed sizes of that same image. So I had some fabric made up in different colors of backgrounds, but for now I had the first one printed. They were having a sale on for fat quarters, so it was buy one get one free. So that was something that I couldn't pass by. So 2 of the fabrics I got were my own drawing. So this one is of these little bunnies. So I thought those would make a really cute project bag, maybe for Easter time or whatever. So this one I got in the gray background. But because it's a transparent background, I can change the color of it to whatever I want. I do have some designs made up with like pinks and blues and purples and that kind of thing. So I may eventually do this design in other colors as well. So that's one of the fabrics that I got. But the other one is the reason why I really wanted to put an order in. I wanted to make some fabric that had an image of my own knitting on it. So what I did was I ordered 2 different sizes of the pattern so I could make some project bags and matching notions bags. And this time what I chose was my knitted lion that I made a few years ago for the Pen, Hook and Needles toy along. So what I did was I had an image of this lion that I had knitted up, and I took a mirror image of it and matched them together and made this fabric with a black background with my lions on it. So I think those will make cute knitting bags with my knitted lion on it. So that's the ones with the larger image. I got 2 of those, and then one with a smaller design of my knitted lion on them. So I think those will make cute project bags as well, and maybe future prizes for the Victorian Studio podcast. Some knit-alongs in the future. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sewing those ones up as well. So before I end today's episode, I thought I would explain just a little bit about the photos and videos that I'm going to pop in at the end of this episode. As I mentioned before, the storm that we encountered a few weeks back, I took photos and videos of through my back bedroom window. It had been about 40 degrees Celsius with the humidity that day, so we knew we were in for a storm that night. And about close to 8 o'clock in the evening was when things started to get interesting. And so the pictures that I took went from about 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So within the space of a couple of hours is when all of that took place. And when I saw that there were mammatus clouds, I knew that we would have reports of tornadoes the next day. I had read a few years back about these formations of clouds, that they always accompany tornadoes. And so when I saw those after the storm had passed by, I knew that, yeah, there was something quite severe going on. So I'll pop that in there. And also, the other thing that I forgot to mention on the last episode was one of the knitting distractions that I started the day that it came available in Canada. And that's, as you've probably heard from many other people, the worldwide phenomenon known as Pokemon Go. Now, I may be old for Pokemon, but I lived through the whole Pokemon phase with my daughter. She was just the right age when Pokemon was a big thing in the 90s. And so we had all kinds of toys and things for her that were Pokemon related. And she collected cards and all of that. And we still had them. And one of the neatest things, she came up to me just a little while ago and said, "Do you still have my Pokemon cards?" And I said, "Sure do. They're still in the binder that we collected them with." And I got out all her toys and everything that we had collected back then. So now that she's in her own place, she has all of her Pokemon collectibles and cards. So yes, she was a real big Pokemon fan. So since she was into it, of course, I knew what Pokemon was. And so when Pokemon Go was released in Canada, it was a few weeks after it was released in the US and in other parts of the world. I didn't realize it was the first day it was released. I decided to download it on my iPhone and see what it was all about. And so it was really very interesting because I knew the characters and everything. But what I didn't realize was what a great way it was to get me up off the chair and out walking. It's a wonderful game that gets people outside discovering things around them in, the real world through this video game. And the first 5 days that I play this game on my phone, I walked 25 kilometers. And it's just been wonderful for getting out and exercising. So that's what I've been doing at work, especially at lunch hours. It's getting up off my chair because I work in front of a computer all day and then come home and work in front of a computer in the evenings. I really should get more exercise, and this has been a great way to exercise and a lot of fun. So I thought I'd share with you some pictures of some Pokemon that I have caught and also some photos of areas that I visited, especially around the hospital that I work at. There are so many historical places that I really never bothered walking around to until Pokemon Go, because there were Poke stops, and that's where you can go and get items for the game in all kinds of wonderful areas around the hospital. So it's been great fun, and I'm not alone. It's so funny. We have a park across the street that has a whole bunch of Poke stops, and I see everybody in the park walking around with their phones and playing Pokemon Go. So it's been so much fun and so good for me to get up and move around and get some exercise. So I thought you'd enjoy seeing a few pictures of my Pokemon Go adventures as well. So anybody out there that has any questions about Pokemon Go or also has been playing it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear that. I'm on Team Mystic. My daughter, of course, downloaded it as well. And she said, when you start, make sure you go for Team Blue, Team Mystic. So that's what I did. And I've been having so much fun also watching YouTube videos about Pokemon Go with different people who've been collecting and giving pointers and tips for playing the game. And as I said, it's a lot of fun. But what I really am using it for is to get out and exercise. So if anybody out there wants to play it as well and has any questions, as I said, give me a shout. I'd love to share my experience with you if it can help get you out and exercising as well. So I think that's all I have to share with you this week. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed your stay. And I really do appreciate you coming and spending your valuable time with me. So I'll record again in 2 weeks' time. And until then, I hope you're having a wonderful summer and getting lots created and getting up out of those chairs as well and taking on the beautiful summer weather. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.